Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. Took yesterday off. It was a holiday, so didn't really feel like doing free YouTube videos. The irony of it all is I think, I don't know, Kevin, how long was that daily brief we did yesterday? It must have been at least a good hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes. So it's kind of weird. It's like you give back on the swings, but you take back on the roundabouts. I can't remember how that expression goes. But site members got a ridiculously long session yesterday, and I think we just took apart everything in crypto land while it was a holiday environment. And actually, we looked at some COT reports and stuff. It was really a lot of fun. So that's sort of what we do in our holiday. Obviously, back to sort of regular business, regular trading in the stock market. So I like to do these little free videos for you as to what we're sort of seeing in the broader market, and then also a little blurb on crypto. So hopefully, give you an idea what TRI is seeing in the market right now. So, as you can see, this is sort of our regular conversation deck. And then I sort of plug in sort of topics du jour in appropriate sectors. But, you know, I always start off with a good old look at US dollar, greenback. We had talked for quite some time recently about how I had believed that these price gaps, this one to the upside and this one to the downside, pretty much defined our trading range. It is interesting as we were coming into these levels. This was also, which is kind of a fun little tool I've been working with recently. How does price sort of express itself when it fractals out? We had sort of talked about how this was a level of sort of we have to see new injection, new energy come into the market to sort of sustain moves. Yeah, we had I guess a couple days of back and forth there, humming and hawing. Interesting how we dojied. We actually gapped violently higher this morning, so this might actually create like almost like a breakaway gap from this area of confusion. Which probably my hunch means is that we're probably going to have to come back and revisit this sort of confusion level, chaos level at some point in the future. So a good reference point to keep in mind. Also, too, I would be asking, what the heck is going on? Why is this thing acting this way? We've been talking a lot recently about how the euro just can't get out of its own way, and now what I'm worried about is that it has very poor leadership, and that's a dangerous combination in currency land. It is interesting, we had been talking for quite some time about inverted head and shoulders, and we're actually into sort of train wreck sort of phase of corrections now. And usually these things end with these sort of big washout dump kind of events, sort of lost all hope. Interesting how we, if we do that same sort of chaos kind of thinking, how we were projecting this 108.225 area here, and now we're starting to get at least a bit of back and forth. We're a million miles below value. I mean, the way that I would look at this, if you ever do need euros, you shop for euros. Euros going on special right now. The only problem is where does sort of the bargain end? I mean, you could technically make the argument. I think I've talked to you guys about this, about things like AB equals CDs. And actually, you know what? Also, I remember this is a really important reference. Is if you go back on the euro, well, I guess we'll do it over here. On the euro, there's actually a pretty big gap on the charts that probably is sort of our reference point. There it is. So, what's that level? That level right now is... and I remember when they market gap violently away from these, I was surprised that these gaps stayed open as long as they did. But that's down here. In fact, actually, candlestick people, they would just like to simply see a candle body fill in here. I actually think because of the way that this closed here, that the gap actually is down to here. So what is that? 107 and a quarter. So my hunch is they back her up into these levels, and then we're probably going to hear then the message from the European central bankers is going to be a little bit more firm and a little bit more committed. If not, and we start taking out these lows, then oh boy, all hell can break loose. Let's hope for the sake of world sanity that doesn't happen and we're just coming into a really good trade location here. So I do believe actually, why don't we, for future reference, I think I'm just going to leave that level right on the charts there because that's probably where we're dumping into. So that's a tough environment. That's going to make for a very strong U.S. dollar index because 35% of that index is made of euros. And I think I've talked at length that I just don't like the euro. I did hear that they were cleaning up the situation with the Greek bond market. So hopefully that's settled down. But interesting in this kind of environment, what is catching a bid is the yellow stuff. And of course, we've been talking lots about yellow stuff recently here. Seasonally, this actually was supposed to be when the market was softest, but clearly other concerns around the world are dominating. Japan came out with just horrific GDP numbers. I mean, you could make the argument that, or I guess it was industrial production, but you could make the argument that, people are starting to lose faith in the yen actually being a safe haven now. And everybody and their brothers piling into safe haven assets, things like U.S. Treasuries, U.S. dollar, and good old gold. So risk off, especially seen through bonds, and interestingly enough, in a weird sort of way, U.S. dollar index, which historically actually is a risk off proxy, but it's another conversation. That's clearly carrying the day in the market. News out of the equities, the darlings of the market. I'm hearing more and more from fund managers that they want to move away from growth and towards value. So, darlings of the market like Apple came out and said that their revenue expectations were going to be affected because of coronavirus, all that kind of stuff. That part of the market's looking a little tired, no doubt about it. It's interesting, though, in Daily Brief, we took a look at Apple. I mean, technically, there really is no sell signal working there. But she's looking tired and really choppy and just absolute, probably at some massive higher time frame chaos level, and you just got to let the dust settle. Just let everybody calm down before you start making big bets there either direction. For whatever it's worth, I still thinking stock market goes higher, and maybe in one of these daily brief recaps, I'll show you that January barometer report. But it did say that there was going to be 2 waves lower at the beginning of the year. So seeing weakness now and maybe a bit more into things like the Ides of March, that actually wouldn't be unexpected to me. Oil, interestingly enough, does have its bottom, and I was sort of musing with Kevin earlier that I'm left scratching my head because very rarely do you ever see gold and oil move up in unison, but they appear to be right now. One's right, one's wrong. I think I had told you earlier that we really can't declare that this thing has actually bottomed and oil's in a bull until we actually start breaking out of this trend line, which I think you can clearly see that we have. But we actually W on the other side of this trend line. That's the key for a guy like me. So, yes, we've had a nice rally. It looks like we've, actually we're even up here today. But I would ideally like to see this like W, and then I'll be like, woohoo! It's interesting, like I bought some oil stock maybe last week or a week before, and it's just sitting at exactly where I bought it. It's just not doing anything right now. So that's sort of what I'm seeing out of oil. It is interesting to see stocks are trying to come back. Like that Apple, for example, it was down like, better part of 10% in overnight. And then, on the U.S. market right now, I think it's down like 2%. So this stock market is very, very strong. But at the same time, too, I'm not quite ready to call that sort of seasonal bottom in risk on. And that's the irony of it all, is when this seasonal bottom of risk on comes in, this stock market's going to go absolutely nuts. But anyway, only time will tell. I probably want to see some sort of calming down in the US dollar here. So what have and risk on, risk off. So that's sort of risk on, nothing really to get excited about. We talked a little bit earlier about risk off. It's fascinating how my bonds are just driving me crazy here. We never did get that breakdown through that trend line. So technically, I could actually start hunting bullish bots and going long bonds now. And actually, I was showing in the daily brief today, there's some pretty incredible upside targets. We had a conversation about my concern in the interest rate market. I've been seeing for quite some time that the interest rate market is kind of been going sideways and setting a base to move higher, but now we're at a really interesting inflection point here in the interest rate market. So if we do go back into sort of panic, massive risk off, right? The whole world's quarantined. Oh my goodness, we're all gonna die, which I don't think is gonna happen, but that's here nor there. We might go into the whole quarantine thing and people start freaking out and get emotional and stuff about it. That's definitely possible. But I don't think we're all going to die. But we get more talk about Apple saying that, and all these various different high growth companies all saying that, you can imagine what the Chinese high growth companies are like right now. I'm sure they're kind of freaking out a bit. The setting is in place, and I've been talking to you guys about gold here recently. I've been humming and hawing, and I've said, well, son of a bitch, this is seasonally when this thing should break, and I'm going to be hunting shorts, and the shorts just never came in, and so I sat there and went, oh, what the hell do I do? Humming and hawing. Then I started watching, and I saw one low, and I saw two lows, and I saw three lows, and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, now we're going to be bottoming out, maybe we got to go higher. All right, well, I am a trader. Traders got to trade. This is a trending market. How does Brian trade trending markets? And I think you guys have heard me in the public. I trade what's called, I call it my bot setup. But bot just doesn't really stand for anything. But it's just simply a very mechanical way to trade AB equals CD patterns. I told you guys, I'd watch I like to follow the stocks because usually they give you a bigger bang for their buck. And, today's a good example. Gold right now, we're up 1%, $17 move. That's not bad. I mean, 1% is 1% is 1%. $17, $17, $17. But my little guy that I bought today, he's having an okay day, but he's up a nice, where are we here? 7.75%. So this is why I like to trade the gold stocks, because, man, these things, when they pop, oh boy, the percentages are crazy. So, long and short of it here, I've been talking to you guys about this. I talked in the daily brief at length about this. I'm a trader. Traders got to trade. I was really interested to see on this. This is the Direxon shares ETF, 3 times leveraged gold miner shares. Hey, caramba, it's crazy. And it does explain the sort of levered percentage move. So, I'm not saying that this thing is without its warts. It is what it is. Anyway, point matter here is I talked to you guys last week about how we consolidated for like 6 straight days. And if we traded up through these highs, I was going to go and pull the trigger. What I found really cool about this was you can see this big AB equals CD, which takes us up into this level. But there's also this AB equals CD, which takes us up into this level. And gee whiz, their entries are almost exactly identical. So I was very comfortable. I pulled the trigger. I'm long. So now all you gold bugs can go, woo, that Beavish guy's long with us. Woo, party. So I'm in the gold long trade with you. We'll see how it goes. Only time will tell. And you can see where my stop levels are. And of course, if I get stopped out, I'm gone. The gold and silver index itself, very good looking consolidation and breakout, very textbooky body. I would have no problem being long there. didn't, I think I talked about this in the daily brief. We had fundamental drivers and stuff for a Newmont to get along, but the bot just never set up for me. But you can see that fucker just worked his way. And now he's coming up into profit objectives there. Go figure, and then Barrick, the biggest gold stock around, we talked about gaps there. Those gaps just did not get respected. The market just blew right through them. So I don't think this guy's done by a long shot either. And probably if we start lining up levels with these charts, let's see, where are we here? Something like that. Yeah. So we could probably do A, B, C, Ds and get you a pretty good idea of where Barrick's going. Because remember, Barrick came out with earnings last week and said they were making lots of money. So it doesn't surprise me to see Barrick move higher. And of course, if the gold stocks are breaking out to new highs, what does that portend for gold? It's pretty bullish. So, all right. So now, I'm long gold now with you guys. I also have some other gold stocks. I got a bunch of penny gold stocks, and I got like intermediate gold stocks. So I don't necessarily need to go through the list of them. I've got lots of gold exposure, but this is sort of like my trade to trade this move here. So we'll see how this goes. This should be a really good educational piece for everybody on YouTube. How to trade trending markets. I also picked up a really fun little story. And of course, Brian liked to buy bottom end ranges. They're just giving stock away. You can see this thing's got a world of room to move up. And just even 50% levels from, even like last September. I mean, you can see 50% level here is, I used, actually, believe it or not, I actually used, which one did I use? I mean, you can just see, look how, damn it, this stupid thing back in 2018 was $60 a share. Now, I think they just rolled the stock back, so that's one of the reasons why the prices were there the way they were. But hopefully you can see a cute little W, if you could get rid of these damn little circle buttons. There it is. All right, so you can see the W. Should make sense. And I'm going to be looking for a move back up into here. And if I'm lucky, hopefully I can sell half on a double. And as I always tell you guys, right, if we break the bottoms, I'm going. Right? Simple as that. And on over to crypto and the corn. We have a big event coming up here today. And I didn't realize it's an auction of 4,000 Bitcoins. 4,000 Bitcoins. At $10,000 each. How much money is that? That's a lot of money. So it doesn't surprise me that this event is definitely the focal point of the market. Somebody recently told me, no, Brian, I don't think it is. And I'm like, forget that, man. It totally is when I saw that. 4,000 Bitcoins. So, I think the message here doesn't really change a heck of a lot. Should have bought the W. Classic El Tanganator target, 50% rule. Better than, what is that, 2.39 to 1 risk reward. Beautiful numbers. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe we should there. 2 to 1, let's call it. Somewhere in there. Perfect. Textbook trade. I don't have a problem if you sold like half of it and you have your stop at scratch and you're like, I'm not going to let a winning trade turn into a losing trade, but I'm going to just give this some room and let it breathe and just see where the hell this takes us. This might be that long-term cyclical bottom that you've been hunting, and you look back 5 years from now and you're like, man, I'm so long from 7,500 and it's like 75,000 and you're like, woohoo, look how smart I am. You just don't know in this crazy game. That's why I always like to try and get myself into a risk-free position. And, if the market stops you out at scratch, well, so what? Or if it's like an option and the free option dies, so what? Or if it's like a cryptocurrency, right? And you sold half on a double and the other just sitting there. It's free coins and it goes off the board, so what? I know there's a lot of people that can't handle that kind of risk, but that's basically how I approach capitalism. So in this particular case, frankly speaking, people are asking me, Brian, what's going to happen? I haven't got a fucking clue what's going to happen. The market can do any old damn thing it wants. And what I'm worried about here is what I kind of was worried, and I sort of talked about this through the weekend. was the way that they systematically just broke the kids' hearts, like right across the crypto landscape through that whole 3-day weekend was very suspicious to me. Something did not make sense to me at all about that, and it felt like somebody was trying to get people out of the market. The problem is, of course, you look at the market, right, and they're all going zooming up here, right? And I get the impression that a lot of these pullbacks were just nothing more than just pullbacks back into, Decred here, a really good example. In fact, one of the names I was going to tell you about here this morning, I was kind of rooting for a pretty deep pullback so I could get a fill on a stink bid that I have on this thing down here. So that's sort of the environment that I kind of look at this as. I was a little surprised to see the violence in the pullback, but the pullbacks, all they did was just bring the market right back into a buying window. So if that's the case, then I'm almost left thinking that this is going to be a sort of, excuse me, sell the rumor, buy the news event. Now, I don't know. We'll see how we finish down in here. If by the end of today, and keep in mind, our little fractal models, they actually suggest that we could very easily trade right back up to new highs here, people. And around these auction events, around SEC announcement dates, Bitcoin price can go absolutely bananas. So just be cognizant of that. Am I taking any new positions here? No way. If anything, what I really want to do, I'm kind of looking at this like, okay, we've got a range established here. There's the top end of the range. There's the bottom end of the range. If I can just get the market to settle down a little bit, give me some structure to work with, then I can start thinking about the next trade. But right now, I'm still just letting the dust settle. And like I said, if you're long off the lows, maybe you're working your stops against previous lows. Maybe you got stopped out on this move down into here. Fine. Okay, so be it. Or maybe your stops down at scratch or using 3 high-low or ATR method or whatever. Actually, Sjord did a really cool study over the weekend with us with linear regression. So there's another way we can approach this. But anyway, point of the matter here is I certainly am not considering about putting on a new position right here. I did talk a little bit with the community about, we have lower time frame traders at TRI. They have lots of fun. And keep in mind, too, we also, we have people at TRI who are like little old ladies, and I run all of these different types of portfolios. So, at the same time, I have my little list of shitcoins that are really not doing a hell of a lot right now. I'm just slowly accumulating away. Like I said, this VIA, I thought I was going to get a fill on there. Haven't been filled yet. That's one type of market participant. We got a lower time frame traders where, swing traders, where we're talking about bullish harmonics being a hit and the market going into correction mode. It's interesting if you watch things like RSI studies, you can see how they're starting to turn around. Things like MACD studies start to go into bullish divergence here. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is, lower time frame players, we're all over the map. Remember I told you just a minute ago, there are fractal signals here that are suggesting through this event window we might actually see a stab up to new highs here. It's totally possible. And what's interesting too is through that weekend, through the meltdown, through the crap, notice how they painted this massive bullish divergence in here. And look at the RSI painting higher lows and higher highs. Wait a minute, that's not right. So be forewarned. There could be quite a bit of activity in here. But for a guy like me right now, I'm just kind of let's just cool our jets. Remember this image, right? This is shocking how that market symmetry, you can see how the market worked right up into this. We're now basically at this phase of the market symmetry study. And all hell can break loose here. Now, the interesting thing is all hell can break loose both directions. I've seen these market symmetry studies sometimes at this big apex event. We actually see, instead of the market, in this case, go down, replicating this, we actually see the market take off and go up. So, We'll see what happens. But the point here is this market symmetry study, we're pretty much, we're at the apex. So now, the conversation I've been having with people over the past month or two has basically been one directional. Now at least we're going to start having a new conversation. So get ready, folks. This should be a really interesting, week ahead of us. Let's see what happens in here. You can see where my reload zones are. So clearly you can see if I wanted to be a buyer, a net buyer of Bitcoins, where I'm probably going to be thinking. And as I said earlier, it's just a little bit too early for a guy like me. Kind of like what I showed you with that gold trade, right? I'd like to see some consolidation. If I am thinking continuation, just give me some sort of structure to work with here. So there's your report, your update on Bitcoin. Also, too, I really don't like the look of this divergence in here. Again, we're at the end of this study. Get ready for some insanity here. But on balance, if I was going to be a buyer, I really like this sort of 7,500 area. Well, we'll see what happens. Finish off today, and actually we'll probably leave it at that for today. There's not a hell of a lot to talk about in altcoin land. Like I said, I am working some stink bids against bottom ends of ranges. If I get filled, I'll let the site members know. As long as I don't see M's in the perp indexes, I'm still thinking this is just pullbacks or still buying opportunities. We'll see how it goes. And if anything, what a great analogy. Do not chase. Don't chase. Don't chase. All right, everybody. Have yourselves a great day. I hope you got some value out of that. Wish me luck on my gold and my blue apron longs. Look like they're both performing well here. Have yourselves an awesome day. All the best. And the only thing left for me to say is bye for now.